We alkalize to realize the body is the temple, water is the source of life. We breathe in life and then we synthesize. This liquid sun will free your glands and begin to decalcify. Peer through your third eye, see through the lies and give your body what it's missing. We dehydrated, and that's the human condition. But when you clean the body and leave the body, you set yourself up to receive the body. See, it's a sharp knife, that's the water of life. It's like a sword cutting parasites down the sides. It takes a certain kind of faith to know that you're divine. And if it comes from urethra, then it's alkaline. We serving truth, and it don't matter how weird it really gets. It's the linchpin ascended masters to initiates. We alkalize to realize. Open your mind and find you had it inside this whole damn time. We alkalize to realize. Open your mind and find you had it inside this whole damn time. You had it inside this whole damn time.
All right. Greetings, family. We're here today with Brother Mango, based in Australia. Welcome to the Alkalize to Realize talk show. This is a very interesting character we have here. He has been a fruitarian for more than a decade, really has been disciplined in the practice. I read his book, at least I had to pick snippets of the book. You know, I want to read the whole thing in totality. I just got the book last night. I actually saw the message last night, and I love the book. The book is called 2020 Vision. And what I love about Mango is he's a realist. That's what it sounds like. You know, he's a realist. He talks about how we should have the issues of farming, how we should get more into vegan permaculture at each household. You know, we shouldn't have lawns. He gets into the consumerism, the physiological, psychological effects of cooked food. You know, it's just, this man is literally like a wealth of knowledge, because I do consider myself to be an aspiring fruitarian, but I do relapse many times. I keep relapsing. I'm a Bahamian. This is live from Freeport, Grand Bahama. Fruitarianism is not at all big in the Bahamas. So, you know, the cooked food spell is kind of have a grip on a lot of us in the Caribbean. So I would just like to welcome Mango. Great to have you, brother. How you feeling today, man?
I'm feeling very good and very happy to be here, Mark. Thanks for inviting me.
All right, this is awesome. Yeah. And you know, how old are you, Mango?
I'll be 60 next year.
60 next year.
August next year. Yeah.
Oh, wow. You know, and I got some 60-year-olds here in Bahamas that could, I know it's young, that could barely walk, you know. And I can only imagine that you still feel your youth, still feel good.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I have noticed that my body is not as agile and youthful as it once was, but yeah, I still, in my head especially, I still feel like a child.
You still feel like a child. All right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
My body too, you know, I managed to do what I need to do. I've got energy for what I need to do for my lifestyle.
Right.
And no complaints.
Awesome, man. I read, you know, looking into your story, you worked in the corporate world for a while?
I did. I have a career, or had a career in computer science, but this is going back a long time ago. I mean, I quit school at 16. I started work with computers, the big old chunky mainframes that used to be the thing. And right. I ended up being an IBM system programmer in one of their research centers. And that was the end of my career after 13 years. I mean, I quit when I was about 30. And since then, I've been kind of nomadic and not really knowing what I was doing. I'm not nomadic anymore. I'm settled now, but I moved around a lot in days gone by. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Wow. So, you know, when you kind of left the corporate world, did you like have like this life mission, or was it just something you figured out along the way, you know?
Yeah, well, I think my life in my kind of mid-20s, I started having revelations about how things were and how things I felt should be. So I started making changes to my life, and it was I think probably the hugest step for me was breaking free of that corporate world, just to build up the courage to say, no, I don't want this anymore, because it was a huge leap in faith for me. I left after having lost most of my money on a very bad investment. So it's not like I left with a lot of money in my pocket. I was traveling on my bicycle for a while, and well, pretty much homeless and not really knowing where I would end up or where I was really going even. But I just knew that this life, that life that I was living then, was better than the one that I had. Yeah.
Right. And wow, was this in Australia? Were you born and raised in Australia?
No, I was born in England, in Northampton in England, and I left England the day before my 21st birthday, and I started. I was working in Germany for 3 years, nearly 3 years, and then I moved to Scandinavia, and it was in Scandinavia that really my journey began in my mid-20s, and that's when I was working for IBM. Yeah.
Right.
So.
Oh, all right.
And that was in Norway. I was living in Norway.
Got it. So you said interesting.
Yeah.
So you said in like your mid-20s, you kind of had like an epiphany, you know, about
Yes.
right.
Life.
And,
Yeah.
and
I mean,
this,
to me, sorry. Ask again, Mark.
no, was this epiphany was it like dealing with more of the truth about life, the biochemistry of the human being, diet, you know, what was so life-changing?
Well, I think for me, it started off quite small. My first minor revelation was the fact that I was uh, inhaling a lot of passive smoke. I was never a smoker, but I always hated cigarette smoke. It was just something that I passionately didn't like.
Correct.
And but nevertheless, I used to go out all the time, and I would drink beer and eat like, well, I was kind of living life like everybody at the time. And this thing about smoking always got to me. So I think it was the first revelation for me was that I didn't need to participate in that. So I stopped going to places where cigarette smoking was allowed. I felt like, oh, okay, actually, I do have a choice in this. So that kind of started to clear things for me. And the fact that I did that, it opened up my mind to realize that I didn't really feel any need to drink alcohol either. And that was my second revelation, really, was to cut out alcohol, which I'd been drinking since I left school, really, you know. Not in huge amounts, but alcohol was something that was in my life as much as it is for every young person, or not every young person, but most young people. So I quit passively smoking. I quit alcohol, and then my next revelation was the realization that when I sat down to eat a burger or whatever it might be, that I was actually eating the mutilated limbs or parts of another animal. And I'd always been a pacifist in my heart. I'd always been someone that would never dream of hurting anybody or ever dream of hurting an animal. And the fact that I had this realization that I was paying for animals to be enslaved and basically tortured and abused, only so that I could eat parts of their body. That was a huge revelation for me. And I was about 27 years old, and I quit taking any flesh products. And within a few months, because I was very passionate about it, I quit drinking or eating any dairy or eggs because I didn't want any part of it. I realized that it was not enough to cut out flesh products. If I really wanted to show my compassion for the animals, it meant boycotting all animal products as a consumer. So I got rid of my leather shoes and all this. You know, at this time, as I said, I was living in Norway, and I remember trying once more, I'd say passionately, trying to explain to my work colleagues why I'd done what I'd done. And I thought that if they could understand it, if I could explain it to them in a way that was clear and yeah, that they would make changes too. But it surprised me when nobody did. It seemed like it was not something that people could grasp, even though it seemed incredibly clear and obvious to me. But other people didn't get it, and I guess that's just welcome to the world, because that's how it is. People don't get things. So I think that was probably my major revelation, was that stepping stone there, realizing that I didn't want any more part of that. And the thought also in my head that everybody wants kind of world peace, and everybody wants peace, but you've got to be willing to put out peace in order to get it back, because that's the way the universe works. Whatever we put out, it reflects back to us. So if we're paying for violence and abuse of other sentient beings, then we're going to get that, maybe not exactly the same way, but it will be mirrored back to us in a fashion. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's when you were trying to talk to them, a lot of people tend to think because they just go to work, come home, and they feel like they don't physically do the harm, like they actually go and kill the animal. They feel like that.
Yeah.
I'm a relatively good person. I try to help my neighbor. I do some good deeds. But one thing you said in the book is that people don't understand that this is an animal holocaust, you see, and
it is.
It's really, I don't eat meat or anything like that either. And it's so, it was interesting that I think you said 50 to 60 billion animals are slaughtered. Was that per year or?
That's correct. I mean, the numbers vary. You'll see people quoting 50 million. You'll see people quoting 70 million.
Okay.
These are farmed agricultural animals, land animals that we're talking about here. If you factor in aquatic animals, which aren't counted, they're just counted by the tonnage. But if you can roughly work out how many are in there by the average size of the fish or whatever it is that's caught in the nets, the figure of how many animals are killed by humans skyrockets from 50 to 60 billion up to over 2 trillion every year. And this number trillion, it's such a huge number that most people can't really wrap their heads around it. So the one way I always try and get people to realize to what extent we're massacring these animals, what extent the animal holocaust actually is by asking them to figure out in their head for themselves, if they want, how many seconds 1 trillion seconds is. Because once you realize how many seconds 1 trillion seconds is, it really gives you a perspective on the amount of damage that we're doing. And for those that are listening, 1 trillion seconds is over 30,000 years. So we're killing in excess of 2 trillion animals on a yearly basis, which is, over 60,000 years worth of seconds. The mind boggles really, because the number, I can't get my head around the figures either. It just seems like it's an impossible amount of animals that we're killing, but the statistics are all there.
Wow. I think,
yeah,
people don't realize, how, you know, that the pollution too that's involved in it, as well, as you spoke about in the book. You know, it's
Yeah,
crazy to try to maintain, you know, a slaughterhouse, and the fact that the animal, I mean, is tortured from birth. You know, just in a living,
yeah,
we pass on that energy on to us because the cells have a
yeah.
cellular memory,
That's
cellular memory.
that's right.
You know? So
That's right.
a lot of nightmares and some bad experiences people might be having, they won't understand how it could directly be correlated to this demonic industry, because when you start to parasite on something, you open up the doorway for something else to parasite on you, you know?
Exactly. That's the law of cause and effect. You know, that's karma really at play. That's what's happening there. It's so true. And really, it's not only about the animals either, because the people that work in this industry, they all suffer terribly. I mean, I have a lot of sympathy for them, even though they're doing terrible things. They're
Wow.
behaving like monsters, but we're all doing that. But, you know, if you look in a slaughterhouse or examine slaughterhouse statistics, it's got the highest turnover rate of employees than any other basically trade in the world, and more accident rate as well because of the heavy machinery they're using. And the people that work there that quit because nobody wants to do it. You know, if you've got to kill 200 head of cows on a daily basis, you're not going to be coming home and just forgetting about it and getting on with your life.
Oh,
It's going to give you nightmares.
so you
You're
said
going to end up with PTSD.
what? It's a high turnover rate, so they constantly switching out employees.
Yes. I mean, there are obviously some people that just get so desensitized to it that they can carry on doing it for some years. But most people, you know, if a young person starts off and thinks, oh, I'll take on an apprenticeship as being a butcher or working in a slaughterhouse, they're soon going to realize what a mess that they've made, what a terrible choice they've made, you know.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
mostly the people that are working there, and it's important that we understand this. A lot of them are illegal immigrants. They don't have another choice in the communities that they live in. There's like nothing else that they can do. I guess we all have choices. There's always other things we can do, but it seems that way to them that they
Yeah,
can't
at the
find any other
moment.
way. Yes, exactly. And they may have
Yes.
families, children they've got to take care of. And if they're illegal, you know, if they are illegal, which is a terrible term because nobody's illegal. I mean, it's just a ridiculous notion that anybody can be illegal. But
Yes.
in the eyes of the system, they're seen as illegal. And if they are and they don't have the right paperwork, it's very difficult for them to find any work to stay afloat.
Yeah, I have some friends, man, that in the US from the Bahamas that ain't there on some,
Yeah,
on the right paperwork, and they only could, I mean, there's barely anything you could really do. You know what I mean? Like I
yeah,
either working in a hotel just doing laundry, just cleaning up,
yeah,
some of them running the streets. So it's like I know what you mean, man. And it's like when
yeah,
you first kind of spit out and come into the world, you do feel in a sense trapped because you're still trying to figure out like what's my move. Like you're trying to learn yourself, you know? And
yeah,
a lot of people don't get past that childhood programming because eating meat, cadavers, we don't really eat meat, we eat cadavers.
no,
Really,
corpses, yeah,
yeah, because when you look at a lion, or you know, a lion eats the whole body and it's fresh. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So, you know,
absolutely,
owns everything. But people here, like in Bahamas, like every restaurant sells meat. So it's like they don't realize that eating a thigh or a wing, that don't really make you a carnivore. You just eating a dead cadaver that doesn't really
you
have
are,
life essence compared to what a lion, you know, would
no, no.
eat, you know?
It makes you a scavenger more than anything, yeah.
Yeah, scavenger. It's just dead. And then they put in, and then it's like, you know, and yo, so much people sick. It'll drive, mango will drive you crazy. Like I had like a bunch of family members. I had like 2 aunts, 4 cousins, a 21-year-old cousin that passed away from stage 4 cancer, young, you know, and you
Yeah,
they don't see the correlation. Like you try to tell them, but this
Yeah.
fruitarian thing is not, some people don't buy it, man, you know?
Look, I don't expect, if people can't buy dropping animal products, they're not going to be eating only fruit. That's for sure.
No, it's true,
Yeah.
and what I
Yeah.
wanted to ask you next, before you had a little talk before the recording, is you mentioned just your beginning stage to trying to get past the cooked food addiction, because that's difficult, man. Like, and I commend you for doing that. Like,
Yeah.
what was the early stages like? You just say what was it like?
Yeah. I never try and downplay it, because I do understand. I mean, cooked food addiction or fired food addiction, because what we're really doing is we're setting fire to our food before we eat it. And I use that, like, we're really burning the food. And I use that word in a very kind of like knowingly what I'm saying, because if we put our finger on a hot plate, even just for a second, we're going to say, I burnt my finger.
Yeah.
So we're doing the same thing to food, only much longer. We're going to subject it to heat for a much longer period. Anyway, what I want to really say is that doing this to our food makes the food incredibly addictive, and is probably the most widespread human addiction of anything, really. It's kind of more common than alcoholism or being hooked on heroin
On
or
the planet.
cigarettes or whatever it might be on the planet. Because from the moment we're weaned, even the breast milk from the mother will contain the residues from the cooked food. So it's already getting the child hooked even before the child begins to eat. So when the child begins to eat, he's hooked straight away. The first reactions of a baby, often when you try and put food in their mouth, is they'll go, they don't like they don't like what you're giving to them, but they can't tell you they don't like it, and they just, come on, open your mouth,
Yes.
get it in there, and by the time they can talk, they're already hooked. So back to your question. When you start, I started off being very positive. I thought, I can do this. I think my 32nd birthday, I listened to a Spanish fella give a talk on raw food, eating raw food. And I thought at the time, wow, everything that this guy is saying really makes total and utter sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
So after he'd given his little lecture, I went straight away and said, that's it, I'm eating raw food from now on. And for the first week, I ate nothing but raw food. But then I was in a really good environment for doing that, because there were a couple of other friends that really picked up on the idea too. And we were doing it together. We were at a gathering. It was a vegan gathering, and a small handful of us decided to go raw throughout the rest of that gathering. But then when I got back into the real world, and I went back to my parents' house, and they were like, oh no, you've already like stopped eating animal products, and now you want to stop eating cooked food as well. This is just going too far. And there was this temptation, come on, eat this vegan schnitzel that I've made you. And I thought, okay, I'll do this now, but I'll resume the idea afterwards. But you're constantly battling these demons in your head that want to eat cooked food, even though you may have grasped already in your mind that it's not the best thing you should be doing. It's not the ideal thing for you to be doing. So for many years, I think often it's, if you're not in the right environment, if you're surrounded by temptation on a daily basis with completely no support network, it is very difficult to do and requires a lot of willpower. But at the end of the day, tremendous willpower. But you just not got to lose sight of the goal though, Mark. You've got to, like, if that's something that you want to attain, even if you fail, you don't kind of like say, oh, it's okay. It's okay if I fail. Actually try and give yourself a bit of a hard time about it. because I think that if you keep letting yourself thinking it's okay, you're going to keep failing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And like you say, it's so, you know, you being here in Freeport and just around family, it's like,
Yeah.
I will go like, you know, I'm 3 weeks into it, you know, I say, you know, I've been doing it. There's a family dinner or a family event, and I say, you know what? Let me try this. Let me eat this. I've been doing good for 3 weeks. So I decide to eat, you know, some cooked stuff. And the next day, the problem is anytime you introduce something to the microbes crave it the next day.
Absolutely.
And then I just find myself trapped again, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It is difficult. People have all kinds of excuses that they make, but really at the end of the day, it's about not having the right support around you. Because I started my journey eating raw food in Norway, and a lot of people would use a place like Norway as an excuse, as a reason to say it's not possible to eat raw food because I'm living in a cold climate country. But the truth is that you can do it any way you want to if you've got the right frame of mind. And even though I wasn't 100% successful, it was not because I was living in Norway. It was because of my own mind. You know, my own mind was the biggest obstacle. And as I said, I went through longer periods of eating just raw. And then I would find myself in a situation again where, rather like you with your relatives, that you kind of like, okay, I'm tempted. I feel like it, you know, it's there. And you do it. And then the next day you just want more of it. It's a slippery downward spiraling slope, you know.
That's why they said it's easier to be 100% raw than 99% raw, you know, because, you know, when you're 100%, you don't have like, you wouldn't introduce the craving. But I mean, it's so like when I went a long time without it and got back to it, oh my, but it hit me like, man, it hit me wrong. So that's why, like, it's interesting when you said that, you know, you did it for a long period of time. You did relapse. So when you say a long period of time, well, how long is this, like in your beginning stage?
I think maybe the longest I went through periods of months several times, and maybe 6 months was the most I ever did. If I'm to be completely honest about it, you know, those cravings were always nagging at me. and after several months of eating raw, if I went back and ate something cooked, it would have me again. And it's so true what you're saying. 100% is the way to go, because if you do 99%, you can't do 99%. Nobody's going to eat 1% cooked food and not want to eat 2%, 3%, 10% more.
And then next thing you know, literally it's been weeks and you haven't put a in your mouth, and it's like it. And you would think that, yo, I've been at this for a couple months. It's natural. I've changed the habit. Let me treat myself. And it just never worked out that way for me, man.
I tell you what, Mark, the word, when you say treat, you have to substitute it for mistreat, because that's what you're doing. You're mistreating yourself. Yeah.
Man, so that's why when I was reading your book and like just when Lee showed me a story, I was like, wow, okay. I told my girl, I said, look, this guy here, that's some self-discipline. You know, I know there seems to be now, if you look on the internet, there seems to be a lot of fruitarians and breatharians, but there's a lot of fruitarians popping up. But in my day-to-day life, okay, meeting people in person in my community, I don't meet none of them like that.
No, you don't know. So, you know, having been on this path since 1992, even though, you know, wasn't 100% with it, I've only met one or two people that are maybe eating 100% raw or fruit. It's so difficult. And, you know, there aren't people there, even if you're mixing in that crowd. there's an awful lot of people with well intentions, good meaning, nice people, but they're wannabes. They wanna be, but they're still getting dragged down by cooked food, by the craving demons.
Yes, and
Yeah.
do you think that is this tied to like emotions or like a trauma? Like is it something that is there some void that we're trying to fill, you know, from maybe our like, because it seems very emotional, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting question, but I think all addiction stems from the same. It's physiological, I think, and it may be emotionally as well. Whether it stems from trauma, I don't know. If you persist with any drug for long enough, you're going to get addicted to it.
That's true.
And it's difficult to really know if there's a deeper meaning to it than that. But one thing that I have learned, one thing that always accompanies addiction, and it's in many ways key to vanquishing addiction, is apathy. And every time we get addicted to something, apathy grows within us. And the opposite to apathy is empathy or compassion. So once we start to have compassion for ourselves, or actually start working on the realization that we are apathetical towards our own well-beings. So we may, if you take, for example, and it's very obvious with people that smoke, they're given cigarette packets with pictures sometimes of an open lung that's been tar infested from smoking tobacco for many years, and a warning on the back of the cigarette packet saying smoking can cause damage to your lungs and numerous other problems, cancer. And still, even though people are faced with this, they continue with what they're doing because the hold of the addiction is stronger than any empathy they have for themselves. So the apathy has grown with the addiction, that they just simply don't care anymore about themselves. And I think if we can kind of put empathy over apathy, we start to think about things more. I think with eating cadavers, it's the same issue, that we don't care about the animals because the addiction, the hold that we have of eating those foods is stronger than any empathy that we feel for the animals.
Absolutely.
Cooked food is the same. You know, the hold that the addiction of cooked food has over us is stronger than the empathy that we may have for ourselves in the realization that we're not doing ourselves any favors.
And that's why you said, like, we tend to think of poison because of our upbringing as a drug addicted culture. We said,
Yes.
or even when you're young, oh, let me treat you. I'm going to treat you with this candy. I'm going to, you know, treat you with this food. And it's like the food culture is spread worldwide, where from here in Freeport to literally to Kuwait in the Middle East, which is everyone fast food there. It's at your leisure. And it's mind-boggling at everywhere you go. It's just everywhere, man. Like, it's like if a heroin addict is trying to get off heroin, it has that support, you know?
He does. Yeah. Alcoholics Anonymous, you know, you've got support. You've got, because society recognizes that these things are not good for you, but it does not recognize that cooked food and addiction to animal products is doing yourself any harm. Even though when you walk around and you look around at people, you see so many misshaped or overweight people around you. It's very rare to see somebody above 40 when they're middle-aged people that are healthy. Very, very rare. They've all got latent problems. Yeah,
you're right. That pot belly, that a lot of men get at their 40s, whether it's from beer, and it's so widespread. It's very rare that you will see in their late 30s and 40s. A lot of times they'll have some health ready, you know.
Yep.
Man,
it's very sad. It's very, very sad. Because the whole system, you know, and like you say, it's so widespread. It's not even It's not even limited to the Western world or civilization as we know it.
No.
It's also, if you go in the jungles, you're going to get tribal people. They're also hunting and they're cooking their food. I mean, maybe, I'm sure they don't eat anywhere near the quantities of animal flesh that we in the West are prone to doing. But at the same time, they're still doing it, and they're still cooking. They're still using fire.
Cooking. Right.
So it's like humans everywhere have been taken by the idea that we need to eat animals and that we need to cook food. Everywhere. There isn't a culture anywhere that doesn't have that mindset, which is why it makes it so difficult to break free. Sorry?
Yes, you're right. It's literally like a spell, like what one of my elders called it somatogenic hypnosis, where the somatic cell, you know, when the bioterrain becomes acidic, we start to lose the biophotonic energy in the cell, and the cancer cell is very low on energy, you know?
Yeah.
They just crave, like they can't create, they can't do anything like that, but they literally would crave substances, and this would stimulate them into action. Yeah. Man.
Which is so true. And with cancer, you know, they spend so much money trying to find a cure for cancer, but the truth is that there really isn't a cure. The only thing is to stop feeding the cancer, to stop doing the things which are making the cancer grow. Because I think the way people are, especially in the Western world with overconsumption, virtually everybody, and I say this with a lot of certainty, virtually everybody is going to end up with cancer if they live long enough.
Right.
You know, something else might get them first, or it may never be diagnosed, but there's going to be cancer.
It's an adaptation method, you know. So
it is.
They say cancer isn't even a disease; it's just a survival mechanism.
It is,
You know, and so you know, Mango. I also want to ask, like, you know, we're dealing with your lifestyle on your journey, right? What have like? Are there certain fruits that are mucus forming? Like, are there certain fruits that would make you feel a little more stagnant compared to other fruits, you know?
Yeah. You know, well, that's a really good question, Mark, because I kind of have wondered about this myself, because having read Shelton and Arnold Ehret and a lot of other people like that, you know, Arnold Ehret would talk about mucus-free foods, or mucusless foods. I'm not sure the term he used. But in my experience, I would say that there is no food which is 100% mucus-free or mucusless. I think that no matter what you eat, even fruit, you're gonna get some mucus build up. But definitely there are things which are going to give you more mucus. For example, avocado, and it may not be noticeable when you first start eating a lot of fruit that the avocado is doing this to you, but if you eat too much avocado, you're going to get more mucus.
Right.
And if you eat too much of any food, really, you're just going to get, because people tend to overeat. There's this idea these days that you've got to stick to a certain amount of calories every day, which is completely artificial. You know, it's not realistic, really, or it's not, you're not being in tune with your body to be wanting to stick to a certain amount of calories, whatever they are, on a daily basis. So if you're kind of forcing yourself to eat more than your body is actually asking for, then you're going to end up with mucus, no matter what you're eating, even if it's fruit.
Right. And what was I going to ask? So what you said makes a lot of sense, and how they bring the calorie intake, believing that they constantly need to eat like that every day. Does this kind of explain how some fruitarians' teeth started to like drop off? Were they eating?
Well, yeah. My own teeth are in not a good shape. But to be honest, I put it more down to the fact that when I changed my mind about the world, really, I stopped regularly seeing doctors and dentists. So I honestly believe if I had continued to see dentists on a 6 monthly basis, as I'd always done, you would look at me now, my teeth would be intact.
Right.
That's not because the damage wouldn't be there. It's just that it would have been built up. And I think for most people at my age, they would have teeth very similar to my own, no matter what diet they're on, if
Oh,
they
yeah, that's
didn't
true.
go regularly to the dentist.
Right, because they trying to pin it on the fruitarian diet.
They do.
They
Yeah.
try to do that.
When really, we're naturalists. We want to kind of live more in tune with nature and more simplistically. And when we kind of decide, okay, well, let nature take its course, then this is what happens to teeth over time. And especially, I put the damage to my teeth mostly was caused in my youth. Every time I went to the dentist, I would get fillings. I had caps. I had root fillings. And when I stopped going to the dentist, even though I'm not going to deny I did myself some damage through eating unripe fruits, at the end of the day, my teeth had all got expiration dates because of all the work that was done on them. So fillings started falling out, holes became bigger, caps fell off, root fillings even, they're stuck. I've still got one root filling left, which people tell me I should get rid of, but I'm just prepared to let nature take its course and let it be ejected naturally.
They also say that that's also like the laws, the natural law. Whereas when you look at elders, actually it's like nature wants you to eat less. It's pushing you to eat less because of the eating is what kind of stole away our life force, our youth. A lot of the stuff did. So it seems like in order to conserve or to prolong the life, it would kind of, a lot of the appetite would lessen, teeth dropping out, whatever, and it just seems like it just stop eating. Just let it go for a while,
Yeah. I think it does us all good to let go of eating for periods of time. Maybe even, I'm very well aware, as yourself are, is about breatharianism and people claiming not to eat. And I'm prepared to believe that some people are doing that, although I think there's possibly or probably some charlatans out there too. I nevertheless think that some people are doing that.
Yes.
And, I'm sure they're onto something, and I would have something to learn from those people too. But even without cutting out food entirely, I do think that we all tend to overeat, the ones of us that are eating. So I think that it would do us good to cut down on food or to not be so rigid about always eating as we do. I mean, if you look around with animals, when they're in their natural environment, I think the herbivores, they tend to eat all day long, but we're most similar to the hominids, the great apes, in DNA, our structure and everything. And I'm sure that they don't eat all the time. There'll be periods of time when there's really not much food around, so they just don't eat. And I think it would benefit us to break that cycle of eating every day.
Yes.
Go through periods of time when we don't eat. Yeah.
And even when you look at the bear, how the bear hibernates such a long period of time as well.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. I also read too about how because of how we eat and our overeating from like birth, our skeletons start to grow in like with curvatures, like curvature of the spine, like the body we grow with the added weight, it makes adjustments. And this is how, so interesting to see that bad posture and stuff like that. Even addiction literally affects even the skeletal system.
Yeah. I think that's likely true. Yeah. Are you familiar with Herbert Shelton or any of his work?
Yeah, man. The last book I read on him was The Hygienic Care of Children. That was really interesting. That book. Yeah.
But he mentions one thing in one of his books. I forget which. I've read a few of them, but he mentions how I think it's his book on fasting, and
The hygienic fasting.
he talks about hygienic fasting, yeah, and he talks about tribe of people in Africa somewhere who, on a regular basis, the men folk would fast well, annually for something like 28 days every year. All the men, after they reach adulthood, would go through this period of 28-day fasting on a yearly basis. And the women, unless they were pregnant or breastfeeding maybe, they would fast for a shorter period of time. I don't remember exact dates, but they would fast for maybe 15 or 16 days every year, sort of roughly sort of half the amount of the men. And he noted in his book that this tribe that would do this had a life expectancy that was several years, maybe even a decade longer than other tribes that were living in the vicinity who otherwise ate in exactly the same way. So the fact that they fasted every year extended their life, you know.
Wow. So they fasted,
Yeah.
you said 28 days for the year.
Yeah, I believe it was 28 days, but it has been some time since I read the book, so don't quote me on it. But definitely
Okay.
a longer period of time. Yeah, yeah.
Right. They did say that the best diet is the starvation diet. You know,
Yeah,
they'd say that.
yeah.
It's amazing, man. I like how you talk. But you actually even bring up consumerism in your book. You bring up, you know, it's funny that you say that, because when you look at women, like look at my mother's wardrobe, like boom, it's like she has so much stuff. And when you the cabinet in the bathroom, women have all these things to alter themselves.
Yeah.
Just to feel pretty, to feel accepted. And then you brought up the heels, the different amounts of shoes, even washing clothes, because I don't have a body odor. I don't need deodorant, or I never have a body odor. And it's just amazing how, just from you living a particular lifestyle, how it adds up to so many different unnecessary bullshit, you know?
It really does. It's so true. You know, most people, and it's not, I mean, you're pinpointing women, but these days, because, I mean, let's be fair to them, they've been targeted by media, by brainwashing of marketing. They've really been targeted. So they kind of, they're the ones that are suffering most from that disease. But these days, the targeting is coming on the man, and we get these men that they call themselves metros, and they've got their bathroom cabinets full of as much stuff as the women. They've got so many different shoes and closet full of so many different clothes too. It's yeah.
You're right. They are heavily targeted. Like it's so difficult as a woman to love yourself. You know, it's really it's really complex, man. I mean, and you see, you brought up, you know, I mean, you look at the stuff in the kitchen, the clothes, the shoes, I mean, it's like we complain about not having money, because you brought up that it was a good, and I had this thought too, when I went on a fast, you know, and I was just kind of observing the people around me, and these people will tell you that they're suffering, right? They don't have money, suffering. But when you look at the day-to-day basis on how much money they spend on unnecessary things, it's like we don't really we believe that we work for this cabal, the Vatican, the Illuminati, the reptilians, whatever you want to call them. But in reality, we working to fuel an appetite. That's really what it is. It's the appetite that really takes your money. Because, you know, when I go to work and I want to eat 3 times a day, I'm working really for my parasites. You know what I mean?
So,
I like the correlation you had with money being a responsibility. You know?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I think I kind of underlined that in there. It is a responsibility. You have money. You're responsible for Yeah, what you spend it on, and you're responsible whether for what you spend it on brings more harm into the world or more harmony. You got a choice.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And are you are you like well versed in permaculture? Because you did bring, you know.
I Yeah, I mean, I kind of uh, I've studied it some in the past. I know the basic principles of it, and I try to grow our own garden using that way. Basically, the main thing of permaculture is biodiversity. So you're growing lots of different things
That's the
around in
way.
one area and not the same thing everywhere, which is what, I mean, I also mentioned in the book that uh, really, if we want to get back to sanity in this world, farmers have got to become a thing of the past. Farmers are not something, they don't, have respect for their land. None of them do. They can't have respect for the land. If you've got a huge area of land, even if it's just 10 acres or more, and you're going with a tractor on there, which is the only way you can kind of maintain that land is with machinery. You're plowing the land. That's not respectful. You're sticking out the same thing over and over again, which is fighting against biodiversity, because biodiversity is the natural state of the world. But
Yes.
our human society is waging war against biodiversity on a huge scale. We're at the moment we're in the middle of the sixth mass extinction. It's supposedly the biggest mass extinction since the dinosaurs, and we're losing, I think, up to 200 different animal species, animal and plant species, on a daily basis
Wow.
because of human destruction. This is ongoing at the moment. This is it's just yeah. I mean, sometimes
Yeah. And
it makes you just want to.
it's crazy because it seems like farming. I mean, okay, animal farming obviously does the most harm, but I mean, even quinoa farming or just farming in general, you depleting the soil constantly, and then the food loses its quality. You see, so there are
Yes.
people that I know someone that they heal themselves on a raw vegan diet, fruitarian diet from cancer,
Yeah.
but they still end up
Yeah.
developing arthritis. Now, what they did was there is this company called Juice Plus that
Yeah.
they sell like these freeze-dried fruit, veggie, and berry powders that basically
Yeah.
the fruits are like vine ripened. Find fruits that are vine ripened, you know? And
Yes.
when they started to ingest vine ripened nutrients, their arthritis healed and it went away. So it seems like what you're saying is true, that the farming, our idea of farming is like for profit and not so much quality, you know?
Yeah.
And, but the biodiversity, the nature works better like random, like just in a random component. I would absolutely love to
Yeah.
learn how to grow or build a biodiverse, you know what I mean? Not
Absolutely.
but because you notice we have a mango tree. Well, we have a mango tree in the back here. We don't really do shit to it, really. But I put the leaf under the tree when it falls. I kind of under the tree, but it's not much maintenance, and it just bears the fruit,
This is the beauty about fruit, really, especially tree fruit. It really, at the end of the day, once you've got an established fruit tree, it's providing food for you and for the animals. The fruit bats up the top of the tree that you can't reach anyway, and it's providing shade on the ground. It's dropping leaf mulch around, which will build up the topsoil, give food
Yes.
for the worms. It's a whole ecosystem in a single tree, under a single tree there. But instead of focusing on trees, we're focusing on things like quinoa, which have been labelled as healthy. But really, at the end of the day, we shouldn't be eating quinoa either, unless we're just going to eat the leaves or the seeds. Picking them as we just picking a few. But the idea of having a huge area just covered with one particular type of grain is inherently ridiculous. It's ridiculous. We shouldn't be eating grains anyway. Grain is food for birds. It's kind of
Absolutely.
like we found a way to eat all manner of foods which we're not naturally supposed to be eating. So grains are one particular thing that are vegan, that many vegans are eating, that are really unnatural foods for us that we shouldn't be eating in the first place, and they're very, very harmful.
Very.
In order to grow them, the tractor is destroying wildlife habitat on a yearly basis. So there's always birds and small wildlife. They're constantly trying to make their homes on that land. And we're going along, and if we're not killing them, they're running away, they're fleeing for their lives, and their homes are being destroyed. So it's inherent, the whole idea of farming, as I insist with it, it's inherently destructive. And really, we should all be living on small holdings and growing fruit trees, diverse fruit trees, and diversifying the types of fruit that's available, which at the moment, farmers are doing exactly the opposite. They're focusing on Kensington Pride mangoes or Bowen mangoes or whatever they might be. Apples, they're just getting Red Delicious or what do you call them? Red Lady or whatever they're called, Pink Lady, the Pink Lady apples, or Granny Smiths. They're just focusing on growing a handful of different types of apples. Whereas if you go back 200 years ago, there was said to be nearly 3,000 different types of apples. Now, most of them have been eradicated because they're focusing on the ones that have a good shelf life and that look best. Which,
and they coat the wax on it,
They coat the wax on it. Because even the fruit growers are not, they're not respecting their land either. It's not respectful to have acre after acre of just one particular type of mango, or just even having just mango. Respectful is biodiversity.
And it makes sense. Like, how healthy could the food be if it's not respecting the land?
Yeah. And that's the thing. Once you start doing monocrops, you're more or less you're reliant on either two things. Mostly, first of all, you're probably reliant on chemicals, because once you've got only one type of thing growing, that's like a haven for whatever bugs live on that particular thing. So they'll come in and they'll grow by swarms, and the only way you can stop them is either using chemicals, or it's very labor intensive. You go along maybe and you pick every bug off by hand or whatever it might be. Or if you've got a field of quinoa and you've got something growing up in that quinoa that you don't want there because you only want quinoa, then you're going to spray that crop. Or you're going to go out there, and I've actually worked on quinoa before. I've worked on a farm that's growing them, and it was organic. We would go out in the field and pick every plant that wasn't quinoa in there. We'd pick it by hand out.
Oh, wow.
So it's like so labor intensive, and it's so unnecessarily labor intensive, because instead of plowing that field every year, if you had a lot of different fruit trees growing there, and maybe some edible perennial leaves growing amongst the trees, there's just so much scope to, so many possibilities to what we could do with that land. And they're not thinking outside the box. They're just thinking, oh, this is what I got to do to make money. It's all about making money.
To make money.
Yeah.
Pimping the fruits. Even the fruits getting pimped.
Pimping the fruit. It's so true.
Everything getting pimped here on earth. Even spirituality getting pimped. You got men pimping the...
It's so true. It's so true.
Wow.
You well said, Mark.
I'm really like, this makes so much sense, because with permaculture, you will have different plants that grow right, and then the leaves will drop. It would enrich the soil, the pillars, the worms, biodiversity. And these plants would also naturally repel the insects,
Yes.
Which it seems like, man. Back into that. Like, I do know this sister, a good friend of mine, she was learning permaculture in Africa, permaculture. I just love something you said sparked in me. That's what sparked me. That's why I keep bringing up the vegan permaculture farms instead of lawns. The permaculture farm.
Yeah. because the idea of permaculture is really also involves traditionally using animals. So most people practicing permaculture will bring chickens onto their land. Maybe they'll have a pig or two or a sheep as well, trying to do it in a very sustainable way.
Right.
But they're still basically disrespecting animals through doing that, which is why I think it's very important that we practice vegan permaculture. Because even though, you know, they'll say having chickens, the chickens are running free, they're living a peaceful life, but they have to get their chickens from somewhere. And it's unnatural that you've got 10 chickens and not 10 roosters, because when an egg hatches, 50% of them are male. So you've got to ask the question, what happened to the male? You know, what happens to the roosters? And they've all been killed. There's no doubt about that. You can't really source chickens from anywhere without having some crime that's committed to the chickens beforehand. So even though they may even be rescued from a farm, I think that's probably the only time that it would be okay. But I think it's still wrong to be looking at them in terms of something that you need to have there because you want their eggs or you want to exploit them in some way. The truth is, if you've got a lot of biodiversity, you'll naturally encourage the native wildlife. You'll get birds coming in, nesting in the trees. You'll get snakes. There's nothing wrong with snakes, really. You know, you may want to steer clear of them, but you'll get small mammals coming in, and all of them will be helping that area. They won't be kind of like damaging it. And chickens, unfortunately, they can actually do a lot of damage. They can dig up, if you're trying to plant a little new tomato seedlings, they'll come along and dig them all up.
Right.
Yeah. Not their fault. I mean, obviously, they're just doing what they've got to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's very intensive with our idea of farming. And we're trying to control nature, you know, rather than allowing for the biodiversity in nature, because you realize spirituality is all about surrender and allowing for the laws to operate and take place. And it seems like our egos, you know, our addictions, a lot of that gets in the way from us really progressing past this parasitic paradigm, you know?
Yeah.
We really don't see, like, these are living things. Like, anyone that has a pet, you know, it's, you love the pet, and, you know, you play ball with it, you know, it's like, you can't picture killing it and eating it, but because someone else does it, you know, it's okay. You know what I mean?
That's the thing where people are screwed up, though, because, you know, dogs are taboo no matter who does it, really. You know, even when the Chinese are killing their dogs, Westerners are protesting and saying, how dare they kill dogs?
Yeah.
But I know what you mean. It's so true. Yeah.
Programming.
Yeah.
You know, so
it's programming. Yeah.
Going back to, like, you know, how you said, a lot of people may not, don't think like that. Just going back to that topic about how all foods, to some degree, mucus, because it's the mucus that the body secretes to allow the food to slide out. You see?
Yeah.
You know, but was there ever a time where you were like, man, I'm past, you know, I'm really past this cooked food addiction? Or do you still get tempted?
No, I don't get any. There's no temptations anymore.
Awesome.
You know, I'll be around it now. It's nothing at all, nothing. And, you know, one thing, the biggest thing that's helped me is joining up with my wife. She found me on the internet talking about fruitarianism, and she contacted me. She was in Australia already. I wasn't here. Okay. And she's actually been eating fruit since 1986, I think. Which is when she escaped. So longer than me. And with joining up with her, I found it very, very easy, because there was no temptation, and it was not. Yeah, it was easy. It's been easy since we've been together. In fact, we have a house rule here. We've had visitors come here. We have a house rule that no visitor is to eat anything but fruit. They're not to use any chemicals of any kind. So no shampoos and no soaps. And we've had people come and stay with us before, mostly family members, and they've stayed with us for periods of weeks or even months at a time, and nobody has had a problem eating only fruit. Nobody.
Now that's how you establish the principles.
Yeah, yeah. Once you're in, it's like, you know, if you haven't got a temptation, which you're surrounded by on a daily basis, even if it's just a billboard, you know, yeah, if you haven't got temptation out here, we live about 15 kilometers from the nearest town. So even if somebody was staying with us and decided they really wanted something, they couldn't go anyway, because they're kind of reliant on us to feed them, or, you know, to make their food for them.
Right.
So,
and when you say visit, you have like a retreat? Is it like a retreat that you offer for people?
no, we did think about that at the beginning, and we were kind of open to the idea, but in recent times we've just found that we prefer just sticking to ourselves. So they've been mostly family members and old friends that have stayed with us. In the past, we did have some people that we didn't know, and it wasn't always the best experience. So we just decided to sit with people that we know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Understood. Yeah. Understood. So it really makes sense how now you didn't have much relapse and stuff, because, you know, you have this sacred bond and union, with, you know, with your girl and your wife, and it's like it really, man. So just to be bombarded with that every day, you know, that's what I'm going through. So it's like, I know that I
sympathize.
Yeah, I'm gonna cultivate more self-discipline. It's just, man, when we have family parties and events, and, you know, and the fruit ain't all that great because a hurricane mash up the island. So it's like, our fruit imported, man, and it's not. It's from Mexico, from Chile. It ain't even from the land. So it ain't really too tasteful. So then that kind of gets as well, because we did have some local fruits, but we really get mashed up from hurricanes here. And, you know, and a lot of people died in the last hurricane. So, you know, not excuses. I'm just saying as to what would propel my mind to, oh man, you know, kind of get off it for a sec, you know? I definitely appreciate this conversation.
Now it's one other thing, I mean, we haven't talked about it all yet really is, but for me, I see the idea of eating only fruit is an extension of veganism, in the sense that it's a way to reduce our harm even more to that our presence causes on the earth. And I think it's always worth acknowledging that the only food which is truly given and not something that we have to take against its wishes or desires is fruit. You know, if we're eating an animal, obviously we have to take the animal's life first. If we're eating a carrot, we have to end the life of the carrot in order to do that. We pull up the whole carrot. But if we go to a mango tree, we take the mango from the tree, and the tree is still living. In fact, the tree gets the benefit from the fact that you've taken the mango from the tree, because after you've eaten it, if you really appreciate the mango, you may either plant it or at least dispose of it in a conscious way, such that the seed has a better chance of growing than it would have done had it stayed underneath the mother tree. So, you know, fruit is this only food really which is karma free. Everything else carries with it karma. And I'm not saying that fruit is entirely without karma in the modern world, because obviously it isn't. Because as we've already mentioned, the farming is kind of being just disrespectful. And if we're supporting that, we're actually building up negative karma for ourselves. but it has the potential to be karma free if we're growing it ourselves in our own garden and we're eating, like you're eating mango from your own tree. It's karma free. You're not doing any harm at all. If you cut a cabbage up, you're stopping the cabbage going to seed. You're stopping the next generation.
Makes sense. Makes
Yeah.
sense. You see, so it's
Yeah.
and what would you Mango, what for the listeners out there?
Yep.
And someone that's like me, right? Because this is for me,
Yep.
but for the listeners out there, what would you, as an aspiring fruitarian, what is the advice you could give someone that doesn't really have that, like they're just kind of alone or doesn't really have that support system, which none of us really do, right? What would you tell them to help them get past that cooked food addiction? You know, whether it's fasting, whether it's what would be your advice?
I think the best advice I can think of is to inspire yourself as much as possible to read. There are some really good books out there that can give you some inspiration for eating only fruit. Like my own books, for example. I mean, you're reading this one at the moment, the 2020 Vision.
Yes.
You know, I mean, you know, this is my first book, Destination In, which it kind of basically explains fruitarianism. But not only teaching my, sorry?
No, I just said, okay, cool.
Yeah. I mean, they're my books. Obviously, I'm tooting my own horn there, but I know there are books, if you read books by Herbert Shelton, Arnold Ehret, he was very good. There's an Australian author called Ross Horn, who wrote a book called The New Health Revolution. Very worth reading, very insightful book. And I think the more you can kind of read this and really take into heart what you're reading, underline things and go back and read them again, you're going to find yourself more inspired to continue on that path. Whereas if you're not letting yourself get inspired by those things, it's easy to fall back more. So I think that it's that's my biggest piece of advice, really, is to try and inspire yourself in whatever way you can, whether it be following somebody on Instagram who's doing it, or reading a book, watching some videos, or whatever it might be, to make yourself realize that you're on the right path, you're doing the right thing, and if you fail, you just get up and you try again. And I think one thing, don't try and restrict yourself to begin with. When you're trying to eat only fruit, don't try and tell yourself, if you've got the idea in your head that too much avocados is mucus forming, you should drop that, because you're still at a stage where you're stuck on so many other mucus forming foods. So
it's much worse.
I think that are much worse. So I would say eat whatever is appealing to you that's fruit, that's in its raw natural state, and don't kind of put any ideas in your head. Like, I've known people that would say, oh, I can't eat tomatoes because they're in the deadly nightshade family. But you're doing yourself a disservice by doing that. Tomatoes are okay food to eat. They're obviously there's degrees. There's sprayed ones and non-sprayed ones, and ones you've grown yourself and ones that somebody else has grown. But overall, eating a raw tomato is a much better choice than eating something cooked.
Yes.
So I think it's very important to just eat what from the broadest range of foods that are available to you that are in their raw natural state. And we kind of have a pattern. We drink a lot of juices. I wouldn't expect a beginner to do this because it may be too difficult, but we're mostly just drinking. We're kind of on a juice diet. We do have maybe a small salad with some grated zucchini, cucumber, and tomatoes, and a bit of avocado. But mostly our food is coming from juices. And I
Okay.
think, yeah, I think for beginners, having a bigger salad is going to stop some of the cravings, especially if you put avocado in there, and
Yeah.
if you're going to include lettuce or something in there as well. But just if you can kind of focus on that as being a main meal for a beginner, I think it's a good thing. You're gonna be chasing away some of the cooked food cravings that will come by eating that kind of meal.
Right. Don't try to move too fast, slow and steady always wins the race, So, and I like how you said that, because we tend to see the best options and try to be perfect too quickly when, you realize, like, you have people that will tell you, oh, carrots are poison, tomatoes are poison, they're hybrids. But yet these same people will go and eat some cooked stuff that is way more toxic. So,
Absolutely.
What I get from you is just really learning your own pace. Take it easy.
Yeah.
What I do see is what has helped me at times is when I would actually kind of emulate a meal that I liked. Like if I rice, I will kind of eat cauliflower rice, or and these would help psychologically. Obviously, that it's more psychologically, because the more mono and simple, that's better. But if if you're not at that stage, then I feel you with where you put too much restriction, and that's why they say you got to make simple steps, right? Definitely.
Although I do think the simple steps is good to once you've got for eating raw. But going back to that thing that you mentioned earlier about 99% is harder than 100%.
Right.
Which is so incredibly true and insightful, really, Mark. That is so true. And I think that there's this older Chinese proverb that goes, great chasms cannot be leapt in too small leaps. Right. So I think when it comes to combating that craving for cooked food, I think that's a very insightful proverb from the Chinese there, that you can't get there by jumping to 80%, because 80% is not like getting all the way. You're gonna fall, and you're gonna end up back where you started. So the way to get to 100% is jumping that chasm and staying there.
I have my personal experience that I've come to know that as 100% true. Thought that if I ate fruits for months, that I would be okay, and I could go back and forth, and I failed every fucking time. I mean, every time.
That's so true. I fully sympathize, man, brother. It's just
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. That taking the big leap. So you hear, listen, to anyone listening, you hear what he said. Take that leap to 100%, because guess what? It'll always be a desire in you. But you can't serve two masters, obviously.
No.
You can't. And and family, just get into making smoothies. Smoothies pretty quick. You could, there's a lot of different recipes. You can make a big one, then have maybe a fruit on the side. So it's not that. I feel like we make it more difficult than it actually is. But I don't know. It's pretty. It is. So thank you for that, for the insight, man, because, I'm back on Raw again. And just in a matter of a few days, the procrastination, even I even noticed sexual addiction is much different. When I was eating cooked food, you know,
Yeah.
dust came, you know, and I don't know.
Yeah.
On Raw, the sexual appetite
Mm.
healthy for me personally.
Yeah. I think that's very true. I honestly think what happens is that when your body is in a depleted state, but not fully depleted, it's kind of like deteriorating. What your body instinctively, somehow your body wants to spread your seed. So it's that kind of lust is exaggerated. It's rather like if you take pruning shears to a tree, and you over prune the tree, and the following year it's like so much fruit on that tree. And I think what's happened again, it's on like a subconscious level. The tree is feeling threatened, so it puts its seed out, and it kind of like feels like I've got to procreate, and it puts out all this fruit because it's being threatened. And your body's being threatened when it's on cooked food or eating cadaver. It's being threatened. So your sexual habits they're all over the place, because you want to, you don't know it consciously, but subconsciously you think, well, you know, your body realizes it's under threat. So it wants to procreate to keep the species going. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's
really make
one way of looking
sense,
at it,
man. It really do to keep the immortal continuum. You know how our sex is immortal.
Yeah.
So, because even when I look at families, they, you know, they really having a tough time, they're unhealthy, and it's like, why you keep producing babies like this? You're already struggling, but you keep producing. You so fertile, and this one brother that you know, if a female constantly just has children from different men, she's unhealthy because she can't, because naturally the womb is like a sperm killer, you know what I mean? She keeps accepting just these alien sperm cells, right? She keeps accepting it and it's killing her. But it makes sense. He did bring up one time about the survival, the fight or flight, and that we tend to live in fear. And anytime it's like, if like how you have a good book, you could have 100 great comments, and why is it that one negative comment some people will, like, humanity just will pay attention to, you know? One negative aspect of what happened, right, on the path, everyone just would pay attention to that, you know? But I definitely, from my state of consciousness, from when I was more on cooked food to on raw, my thinking was more clear. It wasn't like an average young man where every 5 seconds you thinking of sex, you know what I mean? You think, and you think it's natural. You think, oh, I'm a young man. And literally, I think until after 30 days of eating fruits was the first time I looked at a beautiful woman. Like as a friend.
That's nice. You
know,
because I mean, you said earlier, spirituality is about surrendering, and that's so true. But it's also about in heightening awareness, just becoming more aware of everything, really. And I think that's, you know, this path is what we do is we become more aware. We think about everything more, and we want to be better people. You know, I think that is the path of spirituality, is wanting to grow. Absolutely. Because surrendering, at times, the word surrendering, I do have a slight issue with it, because it can be a gateway for you to do things which go against your heart, or go against creating more harmony in the world, and instead it creating harm. If we surrender to a situation and think, I'm at my family's, they're giving me meat. I know I'm not trying to say that this is what you were doing anyway, but for some people that's what they would think of with surrender. They would just surrender to that situation and eat things which they know aren't good for them, but they've surrendered.
Right.
Whereas if you've got awareness, you wouldn't do this. Yeah.
Right. Right. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's a cultivation of willpower, you know, definitely
Yeah.
strong
Yeah.
willpower
But
and
but at the
awareness.
yeah, I think you actually wrote to me before about this talk. You said you're looking forward to finding out more about this discipline, and although I acknowledge that there is you need to have some kind of discipline and willpower at the beginning, it becomes less and less about that as you progress on it. I
Okay.
don't use any discipline with it. It's just natural. I don't have any willpower that I'm using to stay eating fruit because I'm not tempted anymore. I'm not addicted anymore. That's all gone. So there's no longer a discipline. It's no longer a question of willpower. It's just a question of doing what I think is right and being happy with
Right.
it,
Right.
really.
Discipline and
Yeah.
willpower is when you're trying to get. It's when you're trying to get out the cage.
Yeah. It's when you're trying to get out. It's when you're trying to leap that chasm.
Yeah. I was out.
Yeah.
I thought I was out, and then I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. You'll get there. You'll get there, brother.
Okay.
You'll get there.
Appreciate it, man. Like I said, I don't get to really, you know, on social media, you see people doing it, you know, but I really get to have that one-on-one or that conversation.
Sure.
You know, it's literally,
Sure.
you know, one person like that here on the island, and he's even more Etherean than fruitarian. You know, he's more onto this, you know, the chi energy and stuff like that.
Yes.
But you know, Mango, I really enjoyed this interaction. You know, if there's any other topic that, you know, anything you feel like we didn't touch on that you feel is an important message, you know, you could again take, you know.
Well, my books, as you'll soon be seeing with 2020 Vision, they go beyond diet really, and my whole philosophy goes beyond diet, and it is really about realizing how much we as a species have been hoodwinked into behaving in ways which go contrary to our heart, and this is done on so many levels, more than just food, just the societies that we're born into, the fact that we take so much for granted, and you know, I'm an anarchist. I really don't think that there should be hierarchy among people. Nobody should be able to tell me you cannot live here because you weren't born here. In my opinion, understanding that behind every great fortune lies a great crime, and realizing that governments are not ever in any country working for our benefit. They're working for their own reasons. It's all about money. And the more that we can kind of boycott that whole system, step out of it, step away from it, not only with our food, but with our all kind of everything we do with our consumer habits. As we've already mentioned, you know, having money is a responsibility. And as conscious beings, we should use it in a wise way.
Absolutely.
And not do what we can to avoid paying tax, because that money is used for illicit purposes. 30% of it in many countries is going towards destruction in the form of the armed services. These are things that we are unwittingly putting our money towards through paying taxes, and we have absolutely no control over it. Of course, it seems as if the government has a legitimate purpose or reasons for being, but at the end of the day, they're all just fronts to make us think that that their purpose, that their reason for being is legitimate when it isn't.
You said,
you know,
it's a make-believe power, right?
It's a make-believe power. Even money is a make-believe.
Yes.
It's all make-believe. It's all make-believe. and it's so difficult. You know, we talk about breaking free from cooked food addiction, but it's probably even more difficult to break free from the mindset that tells us that it's normal to have these things when it isn't normal.
It's normal.
It's yeah.
No,
If we didn't have a government, and I came along with 20 of my mates and said, "Listen, Mark, which one are you going to vote for? Which one are you going to tell you what to do?" You know, you tell us where to get off. Yeah. Because what right do we have to try and insert power over you? What right do we have to say artificially this line here is we're going to maintain this by force, and anybody that's on that side of the line can't come over here? This is inhumane and very, very unspiritual. Because at the end of the day, you know, we are spiritual beings having a human experience, not human beings having a spiritual experience. And some humans don't even have spiritual experiences, but those that do will say they're having a spiritual experience, but really a whole life is about having a human experience and bringing that human experience back in line with spirit.
Yep. So true.
Yeah.
So true, man. You know, and it's just getting beyond, you know, we were brought up in schools, in education institutions, but they were really indoctrination camps, you know. And
that's so true.
When you look at high school,
that's so true.
The guidance counselors in high schools are just recruiters for college. So it's like they kind of try to gear you towards this way, and it's just death culture. That's really all it is. Everybody I know, that's when you get above 40 and 50, it's just suffering, just like self-inflicted suffering. And I think to myself, like, man, I can't do that, man. I can't go down that route. And that's inspiration in and of itself too. The fact that I even have self-knowledge, because some people step into this and throw it away. They don't even download it, you know? Yeah. They throw it away. Yeah. Addiction has become truth. It's become the law, you know? Yeah. I am grateful at the very least to know reality and to be a conscious, because you first become a conscious addict, you know? Yeah. And you work your way out of it, man. And I love, you know, like you say, that day it becomes natural. It's like, I know that, you know, because I also do like Qigong, I do energy cultivation practices, and, you know, I feel more of the energy in my meditation come to me on a raw diet compared to cooked grain bullshit, you know what I mean? So definitely. This is so, you know, much love to you, my brother. You know, thank you. You know, hey man, if I'm in Australia one day, man, I want to meet you.
Come on. You must do that. Yep.
Definitely. You know.
And I open my, when you finish reading 2020 Vision.
Yes, sir.
And if you still want to read more, I'm very happy to share the PDFs with you of my other books.
All right, but I want to order the hard copy, man. You know,
no worries.
You have it on Amazon, or where do I order it?
They're on Amazon. Yep. I've got 4 books.
Okay, so I can type your name in Amazon.
You'll find them all. That one.
Okay.
That one. And I'm actually I'm writing a 5th one at the moment.
All right. That's what's up, man.
Yeah.
That's what's up. Yeah, I want the hard. I like to read. I want to support you as well, rather than, you know. But I like to read. I just like to read books, man. Like looking into the screen.
Sure. Yeah, I know what you mean. I can't do it either. I've got to read it. I've got to read it in a book, really.
Yeah. And you did say in your book, I mean, trying to monitor this technology addiction as well.
Yeah.
within 20 years, it came so quick. Like, I remember being like 8 years old where there was really no internet like that, you know?
No, that's right. That's right. So you were born in the early 90s or?
Yeah, I was born in 1989. I'm 30 now, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I actually grew up in kind of both phases where, you know, we all outside, we playing, you know, and then MSN
Yeah.
along, then MySpace, and, you know, but see,
Yeah.
I just can't now the internet is like, you can't live without it. It's like, it's like almost a necessity to people now, you know?
Yeah. It's
But
definitely another part of our addiction.
yeah, and I do like how you said before we end this, you did say that there may be a time where you feel like you got the message out, and you know you're not gonna be looking at the screen so much, and you know,
Yeah.
you did bring that up in the book, and it's funny. I think like that too, because I say, damn, I'm staring at the screen too much. We put the screen down. I'm staring at the screen too much, but I can't deny the good, positive messages and how this literally just revealed the beasthood. It revealed their child trafficking. It revealed so much things that needed to be known. So, you know, but there's a dark side, like you said, you know?
Yeah.
You know, but Mango, on behalf of Alkali Realize Talk Show, we really appreciate you coming on. You know, we're gonna, you know, for the future listeners, please support Mango Man, you know, get his book and keep bringing that inspiration in your life, you know. And Mango, do you have an Instagram or, you know, any other thing, or you just use Facebook?
I'm only on Facebook. I do have a website. It's fruitnut.net.
Okay, fruitnut.net. Gonna check that out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that he has a website, fruitnut.net, and you know, your Facebook is just your name, right? Your full. You tell them your full name.
It's Mango Wodzak. That's Wodzak.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So once again, family, you know, I feel like these talks here could change, so provide inspiration, you know, because a lot of times we don't necessarily find inspiration in physical proximity. So, you know, we do find the screen online, and Mango you have 4 books going on 5, right?
Well, I actually got 5 already. I got a kids book as well with illustrations.
Oh, okay. Kids book. That's awesome.
Yeah. but yeah, I'm working on my 5th adult book.
Okay. All right, man. And you can find him on Amazon, his books, you know, for all my brothers and sisters out there, that's, you know, we are spiritualists. We do know we can't bypass giving up the cooked food, man. You can't, to me, like the hurdle towards, one of the biggest hurdles towards divinity. And you realize that sexual mastery comes easier when you eat a natural diet. You see? The tantric sex, all of that. You know, and it actually might, excuse my language, fuck you up if you eat bad and try to monitor the sexual energy, because like Mango said, which I came to the conclusion as well, it can, maybe your body wants to release. It wants to release. But when you get on the fruitarian diet, you find tantric sex, sexual mastery, meditation, a lot of these things, I mean, just fall more on a natural order. So it is really a foundational level for you to have spiritual practices. You could take this and your job will get easier. You'll be a better business owner, a better husband, a better parent. Your thinking will get clearer. Like it's so many different avenues to where this will take you, rather than just being bedridden on the bed, being in fatigue. The best friend when you cook food diet is your bed and entertainment.
That's so true. Yeah,
you know, I've
so true.
been climbing Jacob's ladder. So much love to you, brother. You have a good day. It's nighttime here in the Bahamas. You know, I'm about to probably just go meditate, lay down. But, you know, thank you for the inspiration, for your wisdom. And I want to keep in contact with you, and maybe me and my queen one day when we're ever in Australia. I have some friends in Australia. I would love to meet you. Love to meet you, brother.
We would love that too. We would love that too.
All right. Much love.
We alkalize to realize the body is the temple, water is the source of life. We breathe in life and then we synthesize. This liquid sun will free your glands and begin to decalcify. Peer through your third eye, see through the lies and give your body what it's missing. We dehydrated, and that's the human condition. But when you clean the body and believe the body, you set yourself up to receive the body. See, it's a sharp knife, that's the water of life. It's like a sword cutting parasites down the sides. It takes a certain kind of faith to know that you're divine. And if it comes from urethra, then it's alkaline. We serve in truth, and it don't matter how weird it really gets. It's the linchpin ascended masters to initiates. We alkalize to realize. Open your mind and find you had it inside this whole damn time. We alkalize to realize. Open your mind and find you had it inside this whole damn time. You had it inside this whole damn time.